great start to the day, and based on the quality of the folks to my right here, we are thrilled to keep the ball rolling. Some quick introductions first. So, as Brad mentioned, I'm the managing director for the Americas for Trax. I've been at Trax for about a year and a half. I spent 20 plus years in CPG prior to this. Most of that time was at PepsiCo, and my last role there was the head of sales at Frito-Lay for North America, and have just absolutely loved being at Trax because of our focus, which you heard from Justin, which is helping brands win here in the U.S. And across Americas. So the distinguished panel will introduce themselves.
Hi, everyone. Nice to see you today. I'm Kaylee Musey. I'm the Senior Director of Sourcing at Mission. We're the leader in cooling and heat relief technologies. I've been with the company for almost 11 years, and we're in about 25,000 doors today and growing. So yeah, thanks for having me.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Matt Spolar. I'm the janitor at eBoost. eBoost is a cleaner, better for you energy drink, and we're located in approximately about 9,000 doors right now.
Awesome. I'm Cheryl Van Valkenburg. Nice to meet everyone. I'm the Chief Customer Officer at Once Upon a Farm. We are currently in 13,000 stores across the country already. We're a children's nutrition brand on a mission to improve the daily lives of our children.
Very cool. Great to see everyone this morning. I'm Sandro Rocco. I'm the founder and CEO of Sanzo, and we're the first Asian-inspired sparkling water with a mission of bridging cultures. Founded the brand in my 500 square foot studio apartment in about 3 to 5 miles away from here in Long Island City, Queens. Founded in July of 2019, and today we are in about 3,500 doors.
All right, so a lot of success in retail, which was certainly easy, without any speed bumps, no dynamics. Clearly the folks here have weathered all the gut punches that we all know exist in retail and have had a lot of success. So we want to share some of those learnings, and we thought we'd start with talking on more the strategic end. So you hear a lot of brands talk about the desire to get to a lot of doors, the sort of race to scale. And I thought we'd start there with this question around where to play. And so, Matt, I thought maybe we'd start with a question for you about is bigger better?
Better's better. Bigger's not always better. This product here has a challenge, and that is weights and dims. It's very, very difficult and very expensive to deliver this to consumers around the country. And where and how you compete and where and how this product is placed, sometimes going faster can harm a brand and harm a business. And we've learned at eBoost to find a way to reach a core audience with our happy, clean energy positioning, and reach in a channel, and more importantly, an account in one channel that you go deeper in. In some cases, business can't be run on a spreadsheet. Business can't be run by channels. Every account in every channel is its own business that requires its own nurturing and its own attention. And there isn't one single solution, and I'll be honest with everybody here, you laugh and cry in the same day. It happens, it's natural. And it's an emotional roller coaster, but in the end, it's wonderfully rewarding when you're able to connect with a consumer and they see your product and you're able to go deeper with them.
Other thoughts from the panel on that topic?
We have the smallest, I guess, door count of the bunch, and in some ways, that was a function of just our beginnings. I self-funded the business to begin with, and so it was almost kind of natural that we had to stay closer to home. And I think, fortunately, as we've grown, have had some good advisors and a great team around us that's kind of developed this mentality of velocity driving growth versus purely distribution. There is a point at which, for a lot of folks, you do have to start adding doors, but being able to go in with real case studies in your early days, that's what we've seen, especially when for a lot of the folks that we've been presenting to. This was really 2022 was really our first main year in in bigger distribution. And so I think when I talk to a lot of folks who are kind of going in for the first time, they're kind of wondering, the question is always, how do I get in front of the buyer? How do I get them to authorize the brand? so much of it is about like what you're doing already with what you currently have, not just trying to shoot for the moon. And so I think for us, it's just having that kind, like having had that kind of discipline kind of necessarily built in from the early days has been quite, I guess, quite helpful, especially in an era where we're seeing, especially over the last year and a half, like higher costs with higher costs, supply chain disruptions, things like that. Like it's really important to be able to execute, where you are.
Yeah.
I would agree. I would kind of just piggyback on that, just to focus on what you do is best. Starting off as a young entrepreneurial company, it's easy to get distracted by shiny objects and try to run very quickly and be in every door and every retailer. Just to have that focus and the discipline to focus on what you do is best. I mean, we're the leader in cooling and heat relief technology. That's our vertical, and that's where we go deep in. So that's what we're at today.
Yeah, I'll add on that as well. Our brand at Once Upon a Farm, we actually didn't belong to a category. So imagine that, trying to build your own category, your own need state, educate the consumer on why feeding fresh is better for your children. So we had to take a really slow approach of testing, learning, and growing. And that's what we did along the way. We went store by store, chain by chain, where we knew our consumer was, made sure she was educated as we grow. We also had to go slow because we are perishable. So we had to make sure our operating model was right, our business model was correct, and that our consumer, we understood why she would buy us and why she would repeat her purchase. Once we knew that, we started to scale. And I'm happy to say by that approach, in the last 5 years, we're now the #1 baby food in the natural channel, which is great. Yes. And so really by starting there, it just helped educate the consumer. And we're now, not only are we #1 in the natural channel, but we're rolling out end caps at Walmart. So, this is just go slow, take your time, make sure your operating model is right and your business is right, and it'll come. The consumer will be there.
Yeah, so a lot of advice on focus on better is better, not necessarily bigger is better, prove it out, expand. So can you guys talk a little bit more? A couple of you referenced it, but how do you choose where to start and where to focus?
So for us, naturally, I mean, the company was started by some of the world's best athletes, Serena Williams, Drew Brees, Dwayne Wade, who are all still, partners to this day. Naturally, we started in sporting goods retailers, so Big Five, Academy, Dick's Sporting Goods. Then when we realized that athletes aren't the only people that get hot and have to, are impacted by the heat, we took the product to home improvement channels. So we're at Home Depot, Lowe's, Ace and True Value, and we've seen tremendous success there as well. Then we realized that everyone gets impacted by the heat, whether it's, hot flashes, people who play golf, people who take their kids to Disney World in August and are standing in line for all the rides and they're sweaty and uncomfortable. We've really created a category, kind of what Cheryl was saying, where we have the ability to sell anywhere because the heat does not discriminate.
So for us, Craig, forgive me, I'm going to use the C word. It all started with our consumer, our people. Love that expression, of people. We are trying to disrupt a $17 billion category. It's growing about 8 to 10% every year. That category is dominated by 2 major brands. Monster and Red Bull control about 81% of the total value and volume of this very large, very growing category. If you look at the top 4 or 5 competitors in this space, the insight for us really drove where we were going to sell. The insight for us was, in essence, 18 to 31-year-old men represent about 65 to 70% of total demand in the category. We saw an opportunity by reaching a different audience, either older audience, a gender neutral, or female positioned audience. We took this approach and applied it to our packaging and our products and our brand messaging around happy, clean energy. We recognize that we are not of the scope or the scale to directly compete against the category captains who dominate. When you think of energy, 60% of the energy demand is through C-stores and then grocery. Well, we want to get there, but we also recognize this is going too fast, too sooner. Better's better. If we were to go compete directly against these brands, it would be a tremendous hurdle for our business. So we elected to go in an alternative route with specialty, direct, and with drug. Why drug? Well, one, with drug, we're able to reach thousands and thousands of doors. We're able to have a national footprint. So when we run a marketing, we activate our relationships with our people, trying to use people instead of consumers. We're able to basically, the call to action is to a local location where our brand is found. And it took us a lot of investment, many, many years to develop our position at CVS. It was a three-plus year build. So it wasn't just we're in 6,500 doors in CVS. We started small, we scaled, we learned, we pivoted, we adapted, we changed our messaging, we learned more about our brand and our relationships with our people. I love that word, it's really coming off well now. And that's the process, why we elected to start in specialty and in drug.
Yeah, you know, I love the idea of channels, and the beverage teams here, they definitely know channels better than anything. But for me, I really had to focus not just on channels, but the categories. You know, where was our person shopping? And what else was in her basket? And will we be at the right place for the point of discovery for our brand? So it's just something to think about, especially early on. Where are you going to be discovered? Do you want to be discovered in this retailer? Is this where your consumer is? And then if you're not part of a category and you're disrupting it, is this where you're going to have your best chance of point of discovery? So you have to think long and hard about that, and that's what we did. So we picked the dairy category to be in, even though we are not a dairy brand, but and we've been wildly successful ever since. So again, category is really important, not just retailer or channel.
Only thing I'll add is, you know, this is my first time in the industry. I came from outside this space, and so for me, I guess even the genesis of the brand was really centered on community, and specifically, you know, being of Filipino American heritage. You know, my kind of view on the world was changing as I was seeing the world evolve around me, which was, you know, about 5 years ago, you were seeing in areas that were not directly in CPG, massive adoption of Asian-inspired creative works. So if anyone here has ever seen the movie Crazy Rich Asians in 2018, it was the #1 film at the box office. And since then, you've had massive box office successes. Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings did $500 million at the box office in 2021. Parasite won multiple Academy Awards 3 years ago. Everything Everywhere All at Once is probably going to win a bunch of Academy Awards as well. And so for me, it was all of this stuff is happening around me, but as a purchaser of grocery goods, the way that I'm sure we all are, wasn't seeing that reflected on shelves. And so, you know, that coupled with, you know, Asian Americans being the fastest growing and wealthiest ethnic demographic in the United States, just kind of saw, frankly, a need and a desire to just have products that reflected what I felt was an evolving view of the world. And so, you know, when it gets down into you know, channels and geographies, like, sure, we're now distributed where you think you might, you know, go when you have that kind of thesis. So, you know, our biggest markets are here in the New York tri-state, in Northern and in Southern California, and it's basically just trying to understand where does our community shop and follow them and be available where they are, but not also overstep our boundaries.
As an aside, when Sandro mentions that he started from outside the industry, he started pretty far outside the industry. I think he's the only one in this room that worked in the nuclear reactor. Could be wrong, I don't know the background of everybody here, but yeah, came at it from a little different point of view. So if you think of the construct of where to play and how to win, we've talked a little bit about where to play. So focus, better is better, understand where, if you're going to be focused, to start. So then, and maybe Cheryl, starting with you, sure. Once you pick where to play, how do you then make sure that you can win in that space? Maybe a little bit about why it's so important to win there, and then what are sort of the metrics that you think are the most important, and in determining success?
Well, good question. So I'm kind of a self-proclaimed data geek. Anyone else here a data geek? Yeah. So I love data, I love information. Trax has some good data as well, which is just helpful as you're looking to win in the stores. So has anyone ever heard of velocity? Because that is what you should pay the most attention to. Why? Why is velocity important? Well, it's the leading indicator of trial and repeat on your brand, right? And you really want to get to a point of high repeat on your brand, ultimately. It also will hold your footprint in the stores, right? So if you know what your category, 50th percentile of that category, what is the midpoint velocity that you need to achieve before you expand? And that's what you've got to shoot for. Out of the gate. You should be obsessed with velocity. After 5 years on this brand, I look at it every day, every store, every channel, and make sure that my velocity is ramping as I go. So velocity is huge. But I'd like to make one more point. There's also just category dynamics that you really need to make sure that you're looking at. Share is obviously one. What is your share point? I bragged already that we're the #1 in the natural channel. I mean, who wouldn't, right? But so share is also important. Dollar sales growth, unit growth is also important. And we really do monitor heavily our trial and repeat with our consumer to make sure we're nailing it, every product that we come out with. So we're obsessed with data, but velocity is king.
And aren't you seeing varying velocities by account within the same channel?
You can, yes. I mean, the natural channel can vary quite a bit. I see similar velocities in the grocery channel, but in the mass channel, there could be a huge swing one way or another. Mm-hmm.
And then and also placement, doesn't that play a role as well in the category, where you are in the store?
Yeah.
Because some stores you may have multiple placements within one account.
Yeah, absolutely. So luckily for this product, it's similar. You know, we're on the perimeter, which is often shopped. In the mass channel, I actually chose to go into the produce set because our product is fruits and vegetables, cold pressed. Please, Target and Walmart, put me in your produce set where you have the highest traffic. So, so that actually has worked out quite well.
So we talked about velocity. Are there other metrics? And we talked about other things like share. Other items that you and your teams look at in terms of driving success with an account?
Yeah, so at Mission, velocity is obviously very important. We also think sales, margin, and turn are really important, especially because our product is very seasonal right now. Our product gets shopped in a very condensed period throughout the year. So having a resource like Trax to be our eyes and ears on the floor at retail, making sure that the displays are neat, that they're in high traffic areas, that they're even out on the floor, has been a real game changer for us.
I'll add to that in terms of, and I'm not getting paid for this, I just want everybody to know, my business wouldn't be where it is today if it wasn't for Trax. Simple as that. We won national placement in CVS. We are a small company. We're actually located 600 feet to my left is where our offices are. So it's a very short commute for us to get here. When you have a small startup business and you win a national account, well, how do you service 6,500 doors with a small team? Well, you could go out and hire $4 million of overhead and have regional pockets, which you have to train, you have to audit them as they audit your brand. Trax provided a data-driven solution for us to reach thousands of doors objectively, quickly, and efficiently. And it gave us the insight so we knew where we were if the item was placed correctly. Because the reality is in the beverage world, we have planograms just like all the other accounts. But with DSD, or direct store delivery, versus direct, which is cases of product arrive in the back and the store then subsequently stocks the shelves on your behalf, it's very competitive. So DSD distributors often move product around. So you could have a planogram and it could be mapped out the most beautiful way possible. But in reality, what happens, and this is where you need to get granular with each one of your accounts, it varies by door. So you may have approved for this placement, and you'll go into Decatur, Illinois, CVS, and you'll see that, well, my items aren't where they're supposed to be. They may be moved elsewhere or maybe not even on the shelf. So Trax provided a solution for us to go and analyze and provide data to know where our products were. We found gaps, we closed gaps, and it really helped generate a tremendous amount of reorders and improved our on-time order delivery rates with CVS, which allowed our numbers to go up, which gave us the opportunity to go from a regional test to a national placement.
Sure. Good job. That's awesome.
I'll just add one thing here, which is I'll co-sign everything around, especially the retail execution part. I think one thing that has been particularly helpful for us earlier on in the journey is, especially with being under-resourced, is really also the work that we're doing out of store. And for us, that's a lot of that driver is really generating brand awareness on social media or through our brand partnerships. Particularly Instagram had been our main channel, and this year we're really taking a much more TikTok first approach, just because we know it is, especially in beverage, quite competitive, especially once you're fighting for shelf space. But you can help. But for us, our take has also been, well, we can also help out our field sales execution team by doing a lot of the work and connecting with our community before they even hop into a store. So that's, I'll co-sign everything, and then just also add that a big focus for us also is the work that we're doing outside of the store before someone even walks in.
I could just add a smidge. So the team that I have on the operations side is awesome. We deliver on time and in full. So we just have to remember that, right? Are you delivering on time and in full? That's important so your product makes it to the shelf. But once you get to the shelf, I'll stop and digress for a second. I got my hair done before I showed up here. I got my nails done. It's how I wanted to show up. I was so excited to meet everyone today and just meet each other for the first time. So where you sit on shelf is your point of discovery, but also your point of conversion, right? Is your product front and faced? Is it stocked full? Are the tags up? Are the signs up? Are your nails done, right? So to me, that's critically important. I mentor 4 different brands, and I was talking to one of them the other day, and they were saying, hey, Cheryl, my velocity isn't where it needs to be. And I'm like, okay, well, what's your authorized store count? And she told me their authorized store count, and I said, but how many stores are you actually in? And so I pointed them in the direction of Trax, and I said, I think you need to figure that out. It turns out they're only actually placed in 40% of the stores that they're authorized in. So to your point, how are you showing up? Make sure that where you're authorized, you're placed, and that you're ready to go. And then, of course, you hope your social media helps, your marketing helps, demos, and then trade spend. But the shelf is really important.
Yeah, so we talk about velocity and these other metrics. It's key to have the basics nailed, product delivered on time, it's on the shelf, it's tagged, it's signed, the prices, all the real tactical sort of boring stuff that matters a great deal. And then we talked about a couple of elements that would help drive velocity. Are there other things that your companies do to drive velocity, given how important that metric is? We talked about outside the store communication, getting the basics right. What are some of the other things that your companies do to drive velocity, given how important that is?
I can start if you want. I think innovation is extremely important. Listening to your customers' needs. We're constantly listening to customer feedback, and we recently expanded into men's boxer briefs and cooling performance socks, which are some new categories for us. But we're really we'll get you some. Yes, we've heard great feedback. So we're getting into new categories and just really listening to your customers' needs and innovating to provide additional solutions to those problems. Another key to success, I would say, would be relationships. especially when you're diving into a new category, which we've kind of just created for ourselves, to really equip our partners with all the tools that they need, the comfort, educating them on kind of what your brand and the category that you've created is all about so they can have success. Academy Sports is one of our longest standing partners. We started off in a very small display in the back of the store with no brand. Today, we're in a large display right when you walk in the store. We have, with a lot of signage, we have a collaboration with Gatorade. So really, making the buyers feel comfortable with all the tools that we can equip them with helps them to succeed and helps us to succeed.
I would add by saying never stop learning. Every day we learn something new. Every day we try something new. When this brand, or when eBoost was started, this is a partnership between us and Arizona Iced Tea, the iced tea folks. Don Voltaggio is a genius, and he saw an opportunity for us to disrupt this category, this $17 billion category. And Don's like, Matt, I'm gonna give you a van, I'm gonna give you some cases, go sell. And you learn a lot very quickly when you cold sell in bodegas up and down some of the roughest areas in New York City. If you're able to win in there, going to mass merch retail is a lot easier because you know your core benefits of your product and your brand, and you have the strength around that. But that's one, I will say that all of those learnings, we've already evolved multiple times over the last 4 years, so that we continually want to listen, we continually want to adapt, we want to continually pivot, and never ever be afraid of the numbers. You can't know your business deep enough. And I'm a data junkie, and with data, I find comfort because the more I know about my business and the more that I know what's happening in the marketplace, I'm able to respond effectively. And we fail cheaply, as simple as that. Don't be afraid to try something new, minimize your risk, and learn. And if you find success, you scale and you repeat. And if the moment you have a step back, you pivot.
Just to add on that, I'm going to just go to the basics on velocity. Velocity is can be measured through store count and units per store, but it also can be measured through trial and repeat. So I heavily look at both. Trial innovation definitely helps you get new households into your brand, keep it fresh, and I think that's really important. But repeat also helps with frequency, purchase frequency, which is one of the components, obviously, of velocity and buy rate. So one of the things that naturally happens in retail is you start out in small packs and you go to big packs, right? So that can help drive your velocity, just the size of the package that you have on the shelf today. So there's a lot of ways to make sure that you're maximizing what your person or consumer really wants out of your brand. So we're at the point now where we're upsizing into multi-packs because that's what our moms are telling us that they want, and that will definitely help us drive velocity and stay in stock in her fridge. Mm-hmm.
I'll just add, we're on a crusade this year. Our head of marketing, Kim, is in the audience, and we're giving the product away. We've seen pretty high repeat purchase rates in our issue right now, especially as a smaller brand. It's just getting it out to more folks. And so, this year in particular, especially given the last couple of years, there's been just a softening really in the world of D2C, and that's a whole other separate conversation. But there's, I think, thankfully, a renewed sense of focus for brands to invest deeply into the markets and that they're in. So, our investments this year are going to be pretty heavily into the world of field marketing in key geographies, getting it out, getting the product out to our core community and in arenas where we think it makes sense and we can actually create an emotional connection, with folks. So, we're excited, similarly, to get even further back out on the streets and kind of engaging with our consumers, our community one-on-one.
So no, you can't have a conversation about retail without talking about curveballs. Now I'm sure your business is just set it and forget it, right? You just have a plan, and that's the only way it runs, and you just check on the numbers coming in every Monday.
If only.
But could you talk a little bit about some of the more noteworthy curveballs that maybe have come your way as a way to sort of bridge from what we're talking about now to the reality of retail, which is these things come all the time, and it's just a matter of how big the curveballs are. But maybe talk just a little bit about that, and then I think it'd also be interesting to talk about how do you and how does your company think about your reaction to those curveballs when they come?
Is anyone?
Sorry. Please.
Yeah, I had to jump in and just say the nasty word of COVID, right? I mean, curveball, right? So managing your business through COVID, that was crazy, right? But luckily, our head of operations was so smart, and the first thing he did was bought packaging, and I wouldn't have thought about making that move. So, just being in stock and in supply was huge. But the biggest learning, we had two things come out of COVID from us as we watched and monitored ourselves along the way. And one was a focus on nutrition and health, which was terrific for our brand and really helped propel us to the next level. But the second was this movement to delivery. That was huge. And if you're not embracing delivery, it is not going away. It is going further. We were just talking earlier about this Wegmans in Brooklyn, and there are times, if you haven't been in this store, I'm going tomorrow, I'm so excited to see it, but there are times of the day where they have 90% of their shoppers are Instacart in that store. So embrace these new platforms, because I believe that COVID brought them here, and they're here to stay. So that was a big curveball, and we had to learn how to embrace it, and we had to shift our strategy. But now we're really winning as a result.
I think COVID was a huge curveball for everyone. When the CDC told everyone to cover their faces, we went from producing 1 million units of one of our products in a year to 1 million units in a week. So that was a huge challenge to overcome. Retailers wanted, the product there within 30 days. Then the CDC comes out and says, we need a multi-layer mask. So we turned to our product development team. They were able to develop a product within 10 days. We really pivoted together and worked. It was an all hands on deck mentality. That's how we've kind of the culture that at Mission's been since the beginning. And able to really, maximize what we could do in a really challenging time when a lot of companies in retail were really struggling, and we were able to use our technology and create a product that, could really help people in a time of need. And that pivot and that focus and the discipline that we had as a team is why we were able to overcome something like that.
I'd like to add that another second plug was Mission. Not only did Trax help us grow to where we were, Mission helped us because we had branded gaiters that we use to help distribute up and down the street. So thank you very much.
Honestly, I think a lot of us, especially folks who are founding and operating particularly early stage, but I'm sure also growth stage businesses as well, I think we're living the curveball right now of the current macroeconomic environment and the fundraising that goes in, especially when we were talking about certain categories that are just naturally a bit more capital intensive, right? And so, so much of, I think the last 6 months has been conversations between myself, our board, just kind of our team evaluating, okay, like it's kind of go time. Like, how are we going to continue driving velocities and efficiencies in a world where there may not be, that check on the timeline that we thought it might, that it might come in. Obviously, I think for anyone, it can be a little bit daunting, but also, candidly, as a founder entrepreneur, I'm like, I kind of enjoy and as a creative, like I kind of enjoy the constraints. I think a lot of folks who are creative, kind of, my contention is a lot of folks who are creative like saying, give me no constraints and I'll create you something great. But my experience has been a bit of the opposite, where if you kind of establish some more firmer rules of what you're looking for, that actually kind of breeds an even better product. And so that's I'll admit, like that's definitely what we're living right now. But it's been an exciting challenge. And again, we kind of go to I guess like this through line that we've been talking about, which is, or that at least I've been talking about, which is both how do you execute well in store, but then I think for us it's also how can your out-of-store efforts kind of help usher those in-store efforts along too? So I don't even know that I have the greatest answer right now because we're literally like this I think is our big challenge of 2023. But it's an exciting one I think for folks who are building brands today.
Yeah. So a curveball that's more tactical in nature would be retailers deciding they have a new set of terms starting maybe tomorrow, or new paperwork that needs to come in tomorrow, or I know I said it's slotting, it's now slotting plus a free fill. All these are hypotheticals. But how do you manage the decision financially when there's a sort of binary yes, no, participate, don't participate, when these sort of are, when things come up that are different than what maybe you had in your model?
You have to know your numbers. So in beverage world, whenever you run a promo or a TPR, there's something called margin continuity or penny profit continuity. In essence, what's the retailer going to be making when you're running your promo? And understanding all your cost structures will help you quickly be able to ascertain, is the ask on behalf of the retailer fair, and can you make it work? At what point is your, in the financial world, your cash accretive or your break-even point? And that's about my earlier comment, don't be afraid of the numbers. I'm not a financial person at all. I was trained as an undergrad and grad in food science. I'm a mushroom geneticist, which makes me a fun guy, is the pun there. My point here is, don't be afraid to learn. I had to teach myself finance and be able to understand the language that was being communicated with my retailers and my customers, and to be able to provide quick, succinct responses.
Yeah, it does happen, right, with retailers, and they're wonderful partners, though, and I wouldn't be afraid to have an honest conversation. And I'm not afraid of talking with the buyers and saying, hey, you know, this isn't a win-win for us both if we go in this direction. And many times they understand, and they compromise from time to time. And then if they don't compromise or they cannot compromise, then maybe it's a situation where you lean in here and they help you in another area. So you do need to make sure that you have a really solid financial outlook and return on investment on everything that you do. So, but it can definitely be a curveball. I just would not hesitate on talking about it openly with your retailer.
Yeah, those are both great advice. And I've seen it time and time again where you feel like you're being asked a yes or no question, but it can certainly go in a whole different direction. They're just trying to win in the market too. And you're right, there are so many retailers that are very collaborative and really want to find a way to win. So great advice. Okay, questions from the audience. What questions does anyone have for our distinguished panel?
Can I ask one first? Okay, Cheryl, so one thing you were talking about with delivery that I've seen to be true is in the past when delivery didn't exist, right? There weren't pickers in the aisles. It was just people shopping, like with their carts. What does that look like from a out of stock or availability? Because at 9:30 in the morning, you might be in stock. And by 11:15, if all these Instacart pickers are coming through and it just so happens you're on the order pick sheet, then you're out of stock. Like, what are you guys doing to evolve the in-store conditions kind of through that?
Well, we obsess with our in-stock as well and our in-stock position. And with a big movement toward DTC, we did have to lean into retail quite a bit and merchandising support a lot because the shelf is managed by an algorithm, right? And that algorithm takes some time to catch up too. So we really had to invest in stores to make sure that we just had the eyes and the hands at the shelf to ensure that we were in stock and full, ready to go. So that's really the basic but most critical thing that we did.
That's great. Next.
Back off of that. Cheryl, share with us your OTIF secrets. I mean, in an environment where no truck driver can get anywhere on time ever.
Yeah.
What are your LTL secrets? How are you guys doing it?
Well, we actually have a strategic partnership with Organic Valley. So that has really helped us out quite a bit because they have a really big fleet. So thinking about things like that, who can you partner with that will really help you deliver on time and in full? And then I am an obsessive forecaster. I do not like to miss a number, So and plus we're perishable too. So the focus on our forecast by SKU of 60 SKUs, and I want to be within 2% accuracy on all of them, even though I'm scaling. So I have an obsession over forecast accuracy. And then our strategic partnership really has allowed us to deliver on time and in full. So those two work hand in hand together. Yeah.
Hello. My question is, when you started your product, did you start your product, or did you, were you guys making your product first and then went to like a co-packer to scale, or did you already start with a co-packer when y'all started your products?
Are you asking?
I'm asking because all three of you guys have products. I'm referencing to all three.
For us, we partnered with Arizona, so Cheryl mentioned they partnered with Organic Valley. We utilize them for operations and supply chain to help us do things that we couldn't normally do as a startup. I could tell you in my other business ventures, the more you know about your brand and your business and your product, the easier it is to build the relationships with the co-packer. So if you're coming with a concept, that's wonderful. But the more you know about how to make that concept from a production perspective, we'll have a more two-way relationship with the co-packer versus a one-way where I've got an idea and then they may ask for everything from Monday through Sunday in return for developing and producing it for you.
Yeah, I'll add. I have some funny photos on my personal Instagram of attempting to hand produce and bottle bottles of sparkling water. I had a keg, like a beer keg set up. Learned very quickly that was a terrible idea, especially as I was trying to lug those around on the New York City subway. So like, if you look at pictures from me from 2019, or 2018, 2019, I'm like in actually like way better shape than I am right now, because I tried to actually do the whole thing. But I think actually to Matt's point, the crazy benefit that it did provide was when I kind of realized how wrong I was in my ways and went to a co-man, was able to have really good conversations about, hey, this is what I saw in my little 5-gallon corny keg setup. How do we make sure this doesn't happen in a bigger 1,000-gallon tank? And so I do think that there is very much value for someone who's like starting out, getting some level of like initial, even like bench test knowledge around your manufacturing, so you can have informed conversations with folks.
I'll add, our original founder of Once Upon a Farm, her name is Cassandra Curtis. She started blending in her kitchen, and there are fun photos as well from the early days in garages. I think you knew that too. And she has this great stalker story of how she went to a yoga meeting, because somebody who was in that yoga class actually had an HPP brand. So she stalked them and became friends and learned about how to HPP a product. And once she knew that, she went and found who is the best co-man that will allow me to produce the product and the standards that I want. And then she started just talking about her brand, talking about the standards that she wants, and found a really good partnership. So that's how it worked for us.
We have time for one more question.
All right, one more. Okay.
Hi, I'm Drew. I'm one of the founders of Resist Nutrition. And this is more about early stage brands, but was there any big needle movers to get approved for stores and then for velocity when you first started?
I mean, I could hop in. Sorry. Yeah. I mean, our first one for sure was getting the authorization for Whole Foods Northeast region, and it was me literally cold emailing John Lawson and asking if I could send samples, and miraculously got an email back within 5 minutes saying, "Sure, here's my address." And you know, and it kind of went from there. I realized that's not the journey for a lot of folks, but I'll also say at that time I was building initial velocities in the city at other specialty natural food stores like Green Grape, Forger's Market, now the Goods Mart, and like being in stores and then kind of having that interaction. But I think helped set us up to get a needle mover like that. But for us, for sure, it was our Whole Foods Northeast authorization.
I would add by saying never stop asking. And you're going to get 9 no's. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. And our growth was one where we had trial and error as to what worked and what didn't work, and just to be able to respond quickly.
I would definitely look at your local chains as well and talk with them. There are some great ones, especially in California, that really help bring brands to life. Whole Foods was a big needle mover for this brand as well, and it sounds like you're a nutrition brand, so I'd focus on Sprouts and Whole Foods, and the natural channel has some great retailers. But there's something else to mention here. There are a lot of sales agencies as well. Do not be afraid to find a really good one that you connect with and that can really help your brand. The best thing that a sales agency can bring is information and access. They can help guide you through the process and making sure that you're going to be placed in the point of discovery that you want for your brand. So it's something else to think about. A lot of people think it's maybe not something in their near future for their P&L, but it would be a consideration that I would highly consider.
To add to Cheryl's point, yeah, I would agree. A lot of sales agencies have relationships with these buyers. And to Matt's point, if you don't ask, the answer is always no. So just to get a buyer to be comfortable and to give you a chance and start off at a small test, and then once you prove success there, you can translate that to another retailer.
And if I could add one piece of advice, as you're calling on customers, I would not take your Whole Foods deck and change the logo to HEB and send that to the HEB buyer. It is worth the investment to understand what drives that company, what are they looking for, so they can win in the market. If you have them want to buy your product as opposed to you trying to sell your product, you change the game. So just as a note, to not rinse and repeat the same presentation would be other advice I would give as well. Kaylee, Matt, Cheryl, Sandro, congratulations on the success you've had in the market. Thank you for spending time with us today. Thank you for all the comments and the sharing your experiences with the team here. And it's really, really appreciated. So thank you, and thank you all for the questions and the time.
Thanks, Greg.